Welcome back, Lincoln Currency. Thank you for joining me today. We're going to take a deep and detailed look at the 2018 D1 coin, what it is, how it was made, the design and history, what to watch for, and what its market value really is. Whether you collect coins, are curious about rare varieties, or want to know if that penny in your pocket might be worth more than just 1 cent, this is for you. I'll walk step by step through every facet: the origin, the minting, the design features, the variants, how condition and rarity affect value, recent auction records, errors, and what collectors are paying right now. Let's begin. When people refer to the 2018 D1 coin, they mean a Lincoln cent, also called a penny, struck in 2018 at the Denver Mint, hence the D Mint mark, in the United States. It's part of the modern Lincoln Shield cent series, which started in 2010, replacing the Lincoln Memorial design on the reverse. The 2018 coins are circulated, everyday coins, but some examples, especially high-grade or rare versions, are collectible and fetch premiums. First, basic physical specifications and composition. A standard 2018 D penny weighs 2.5 grams. Its diameter is 19.05 millimeters, and the edge is plain. There are no reeded edges, no lettering or designs on the edge. Coin value checker +1 composition. Since 1982, pennies have been made with a zinc core, plated with copper. So the 2018 D is a copper-plated zinc coin. The copper layer gives the familiar color, but the bulk of the coin by mass is zinc with a thin copper coating. Wikipedia +2 coin value checker +2 design. On the obverse, the head's side, we have the portrait of Abraham Lincoln facing right, as is traditional. Above Lincoln is the motto, "In God We Trust." To the left of Lincoln is Liberty, and just under his chin and neck is the year 2018. Just below the date, a small D Mint mark denotes that it was struck at the Denver Mint. The artist for the Lincoln portrait for these modern Lincoln cents traces back to Victor David Brenner, whose design has been modified over years but still is the basis. Wikipedia +2 coin value checker +2 on the reverse, tail side, is the Union Shield design, which has been used since 2010. The shield has 13 vertical stripes, representing the original 13 states, joined by a horizontal bar above, symbolizing the federal government. Across the shield is a banner with the denomination 1 cent. Above that around the rim are the words United States of America. On the horizontal bar is the motto E Pluribus Unum. The reverse design was by Lindo Base, sculpted by Joseph Mena. Coin value checker +2 Wikipedia +2 now, production numbers and mintage. The 2018 D cent had approximately 3,736,400,000 pieces struck for circulation from the Denver Mint. That is an enormous number. This is a very common coin in terms of circulation strikes. Coin value checker +1 because so many were made. Most 2018 D cents are worth face value, 1 cent, if they have been circulated, meaning showing wear, scratches, dings, circulation marks, loss of luster. But collectors look for uncirculated coins, coins in mint condition, or special proof or error variants, and those can be worth significantly more. U.S. Coins Guide +1. Now that we have walked through the basic design, minting details, and general market ranges for the 2018 D Lincoln Shield cent, let's go much deeper into the fascinating world that surrounds coins like this and understand why even something as common as a modern 1 cent piece can sometimes trigger intense collector demand and speculation. Many people underestimate the layers of art, science, and economics that go into a tiny object like this. So let's peel those layers apart. First, the minting process itself is worth exploring, because it directly affects how errors occur and why some coins end up as rare collectibles. Every single 2018 D penny started its life as a blank disc called a planchet. Planchets for modern cents are punched from long strips of zinc and then coated with copper through electroplating to get the thin copper layer. These blanks are then run through an annealing furnace to soften the metal, washed to remove oxidation, and finally fed into a coining press. The Denver Mint's high-speed Schuler presses can strike hundreds of coins per minute, using dies engraved with the obverse and reverse designs. Each strike uses tens of tons of pressure to force the design details into the metal. At that speed, mistakes can happen. If a die starts to crack or wear, it can leave raised lines or blobs of metal. Those are die cracks or die chips. If a blank planchet is misfed and doesn't sit correctly under the die, the strike might be off-center or even produce a partial missing design. If debris like grease or cloth gets between the die and planchet, parts of the design might fail to strike up fully. Those strike-through errors are actually pretty common, and for modern coins like the 2018D, they are among the most sought-after types of collectible errors. The mint doesn't intentionally release error coins, but some slip through quality control. And because billions were made, even a very low error rate still produces a significant number of oddities that collectors hunt for. There's also something called a doubled die, which happens earlier in the process when the working die itself is hubbed more than once in slightly different alignments. When those dies strike coins, every coin they make has doubled details. This is different from machine doubling or strike doubling, which happens after the strike and is usually less valuable. True doubled dies are highly collectible, and that's why collectors carefully inspect the lettering and date on 2018D cents for signs of splitting or doubling. If a strong double die variety ever appears for 2018D and is recognized in catalogs, that could skyrocket its value. So far, none have been confirmed at a major level, but collectors still check every year's issue hoping to discover a new variety. Another subtle but fascinating feature is die state. Dies gradually wear out after striking hundreds of thousands of coins, and as they do, the design details get softer, the rims less sharp, and tiny cracks form. Early die state coins are usually the sharpest and cleanest, which makes them more desirable to collectors, especially in high grades. Late die state coins sometimes show heavy die deterioration doubling, not to be confused with true doubled dies, which can make letters look thick or distorted. Most 2018D pennies people find in change are late die state coins. That's one reason finding a crisp, early strike can be tough and why those few pristine examples command premiums. Let's go deeper into grading, because understanding grading is crucial to valuing a modern coin like this. On the Sheldon 70-point scale, an MS-60 coin is technically uncirculated but might have lots of bag marks or dull luster. MS-63 to MS-64 are average uncirculated coins with some marks but decent eye appeal. MS-65 is considered gem uncirculated, with only minor contact marks and strong luster. MS-66 and MS-67 are superb gems, with very few small marks, and MS-68 and above are extremely rare for mass-produced coins. To reach MS-69, a coin must be virtually flawless even under magnification, and MS-70 is considered perfect. For copper coins, color also matters: RD, red, RB, red-brown, or BN brown. Red coins are the most desirable and rarest as time goes on, because copper quickly tones. This is why the few 2018D cents graded MS-69 RD sold for thousands. They are needle-in-a-haystack survivors, perfectly struck, perfectly preserved, fully red, and free of any spots or toning. Imagine how hard that is when billions were minted and most went straight into bags, bins, and circulation where they got dinged up instantly. Out of over 3.5 billion coins, only a microscopic fraction could survive in that flawless state, and only if someone found them immediately and stored them carefully in airtight holders away from humidity and handling. That rarity of condition is what drives the huge price difference between a 1-cent coin and a $5,000 plus auction sale. When you hold a 2018D penny between your fingers, it feels so small and ordinary that it's hard to imagine how many different stories and layers of human effort are wrapped up inside it. But if we trace its path backward, from your pocket to the mint, from the mint to the design studio, from the design to the historic symbolism that inspired it, you start to see why even a modern coin has a place in the vast and intricate world of numismatics. And when we zoom out far enough, we can even glimpse the invisible forces of supply, demand, rarity, grading populations, and collector psychology that can transform something worth 1 cent into something worth thousands. So let's dive even deeper and peel away more of those layers. Point 1: of the first things serious collectors do when they study a coin like the 2018 D cent is consult population reports from major grading services like PCGS and NGC. These reports are public and constantly updated, and they list exactly how many coins of a given date, minmark, and type have been graded at each grade level. Imagine you discover a gorgeous 2018 D penny in mint condition, and you send it to PCGS, and they grade it MS69RD. If the population report says there are only 2 other MS69RD examples known, suddenly your coin is one of only 3 in the world, and registry set collectors may be willing to pay almost any price to own one. This is how rarity is measured, not just by mintage numbers, but by condition rarity. And condition rarity often matters more to the market than how many were struck. Contrast that with how many coins were minted. Over 3.5 billion 2018 D cents were struck. That's an astronomical number. By sheer population alone they are common, but only a tiny fraction could ever survive in flawless condition. And every time a collector mishandles one, breathes on it, leaves a fingerprint, or lets it tone from red to brown, it silently drops out of the competition for top grade status. That is why the upper end of the grading spectrum is like the peak of a mountain with only a few climbers at the top, while the base of the mountain is covered with billions of worn, circulated pieces. Another important concept is eye appeal, which is the subjective beauty of a coin. Grading services try to quantify condition, but buyers are still human, and humans are drawn to beauty. A coin with blazing red color, mirror-like fields, and sharp strike can outshine another coin of the same grade that looks dull or spotted. This is why auction records often show huge price differences for coins of the same grade. And it means that if you find a flawless 2018 D penny, how you store and preserve it becomes crucial. Collectors use inert mylar flips, archival holders, and climate-controlled safes to stop oxidation. Even a single tiny green spot of copper corrosion can destroy thousands of dollars of potential value. Let's talk about counterfeits, because even modern coins are fake surprisingly often. It might sound odd to counterfeit a 1-cent coin, but counterfeiters sometimes create fake high-grade coins to sell as rare top-pop examples. They might take a real 2018 D penny, polish it, artificially recolor it to look red, and then try to pass it off as MS69. Or they might alter the mintmark or date. This is another reason why serious collectors insist on third-party grading and encapsulation. A coin in a tamper-evident slab from PCGS or NGC gives buyers confidence that it's genuine and accurately graded. For raw coins sold online, you have to be cautious. High-resolution photos, return policies, and seller reputation all matter. Now let's look at how the 2018 D cent fits into the larger timeline of Lincoln cents, because understanding its place in the series adds depth to its story. The Lincoln cent began in 1909 with the wheat reverse designed by Victor David Brenner. That design ran until 1958. Then in 1959 the reverse was changed to the Lincoln Memorial to mark the 150th anniversary of Lincoln's birth. That memorial reverse lasted until 2008. In 2009, 4 different reverse designs were issued to celebrate the bicentennial of Lincoln's birth, each showing a different stage of his life. Then in 2010, the U.S. Mint introduced the Union Shield design that appears on the 2018 D penny. So the 2018 D is part of this modern Shield cent era, which is the 4th major reverse design in over a century of Lincoln cents. The Shield design itself is rich with symbolism. The 13 vertical stripes represent the original 13 colonies, joined by a single horizontal bar at the top symbolizing the federal government that unites them. The banner across the shield says, 1 cent, and the field behind is smooth, emphasizing the clean lines of the shield. The reverse design was created by Lindo Bass and sculpted by Joseph Mena of the U.S. Mint's engraving staff. The obverse still carries the portrait of Lincoln, which was first used in 1909, and remains the longest-running portrait in U.S. coinage history. So while the 2018 D is a small coin, it carries over a century of tradition and symbolism, which is part of what makes it appealing to collectors. We can also place the 2018 D in its economic context. By 2018, the cost to produce a penny was about 1.8 cents, meaning the U.S. Mint was losing money on every cent it made. There have been recurring debates in Congress about discontinuing the penny altogether because of this cost. If the penny is ever abolished, then the last few years of production, including 2018, could gain extra historical significance as last era issues. That possibility adds a layer of speculative interest to modern cents. Some collectors are quietly hoarding uncirculated rolls of recent cents for this reason. If production stops, pristine examples could become far scarcer in the future. Let's talk about how coins like the 2018 D enter the collector market from the mint. The Denver Mint strikes the coins, then they're counted and loaded into huge ballistic bags that weigh thousands of pounds each. Those bags are shipped to Federal Reserve banks, then to armored carriers, then to commercial banks, and finally to the public. Most coins get mixed, jostled, and dinged during this journey, which is why it's so rare to find one that's still pristine. Some collectors try to get unopened mint-sealed boxes of rolls from banks the year of issue, to catch coins before they get damaged. This practice is called roll hunting, and it's one of the main ways people find high-grade modern cents. We can also dive into market psychology. Collectors love competition, and modern registry set competitions have fueled huge demand for top-grade coins. On PCGS's website, collectors can build digital sets of coins, and each coin is assigned points based on its rarity and grade. The collectors with the highest points win awards and bragging rights. This has created fierce bidding wars for the finest known examples of even common date coins like 2018 D cents. If there are only a few MS69RD coins known, registry collectors may push their price into the thousands just to complete a top-ranked set. This is why a single coin can break away from the pack in value. Auction results illustrate this vividly. While most 2018 D cents sell for pennies, a handful of top-graded examples have sold for thousands. This shows how condition can multiply value by hundreds of thousands of %. It also shows why ordinary circulated coins are almost worthless in comparison. They're common, while flawless examples are nearly unique. This sharp divide is typical in modern U.S. coinage, where mass production makes most coins abundant, but perfect survivors extremely scarce. We should also look at varieties that could add value to a 2018 D cent. There are known small die chips on some 2018 D cents, especially around the letters of Liberty, or in the shield lines on the reverse. Some collectors call these spiked shield varieties when a die crack runs through the shield. While minor, they can sell for a few dollars each. There are also off-center strikes known, with part of the design missing. Depending on how far off-center they are, and if the date is still visible, these can sell from $10 to over $100. A dramatic off-center 2018 D in uncirculated condition could be worth even more. Imagine for a moment that somewhere in a small town, a 2018 D penny is sitting unnoticed at the bottom of a change jar, its red copper glow still brilliant under a thin layer of dust. Maybe someone pulled it from a fresh bankroll years ago and forgot about it. Maybe it never touched another coin long enough to get a single mark. That coin might look like any other cent to almost everyone, but to the trained eye, it could be a hidden treasure. It could be the kind of flawless survivor that collectors wait years to find, the kind that ends up locked in a slab and selling for thousands. And this simple idea, that something ordinary could secretly be extraordinary, is what keeps people searching. This is what makes even a 2018 D penny compelling. To understand where its market could go in the future, it helps to look at how other modern Lincoln cents have behaved over time. For example, take the 1995 double die cent. When it was first discovered, rolls were selling for hundreds of dollars because of the strong doubling on Liberty and in God We Trust. Over the decades, as more were found, the price stabilized, but high-grade examples still command strong premiums today. Or look at the 1969 S double die, which is extremely rare and worth tens of thousands in high grades. These examples show how major varieties can transform otherwise common coins into prized collectibles. Now, 2018 D has no known major double die of that magnitude yet. But it's still young in numismatic terms. Sometimes new varieties are discovered years later when collectors finally notice subtle details that were overlooked. If a dramatic 2018 D variety emerges in the future, early examples could skyrocket in value. This is why some collectors keep detailed images of every coin they inspect, hoping one day their find will match a newly catalogued variety and become famous. We can also compare the grading populations. For many modern shield cents, the jump in value happens at MS68 and above. For example, a 2017D in MS68RD might sell for $150, but in MS69RD it might jump to several thousand because only a few exist. The same pattern applies to 2018D. At lower grades they are worth cents, at mid-range grades maybe a few dollars, and at the highest grade thousands. It's a steep curve, and only a handful can climb it. This shows how condition rarity is more powerful than mintage numbers. Billions exist, but only a handful are perfect. Predicting the future market for 2018D involves thinking about supply, demand, and attrition. Supply will shrink as coins wear out, are lost, or get damaged. Demand may increase as younger collectors who grew up seeing these coins develop nostalgia for them decades from now. We've seen this pattern before. Coins that were ignored when new often become collectible when they turn 50 or 100 years old. If pennies are discontinued in the future, surviving mint-state examples from the final decades could gain historical appeal. So while today most 2018D cents are just pocket change, they could become sought-after classics in the long run. But finding a valuable one requires more than luck, it requires skill. If you ever think you've found an exceptional 2018D penny, there are steps to follow to preserve and maximize its potential. First, never touch the surfaces with bare fingers. Use cotton gloves or hold it only by the edges. Place it immediately into a soft, inert holder like a mylar flip or an airtight capsule. Avoid PVC holders, which can release chemicals that damage coins. Keep it in a dry, stable environment away from humidity and heat. Even tiny amounts of moisture can cause copper to spot or tone. Next, examine it under strong lighting and magnification. A 5x to 10x loupe works well. Look for contact marks, scratches, or spots that could lower its grade. Look at the fields, they should be smooth, reflective, and free of abrasions. Look at the high points of Lincoln's cheek and jaw, which are the first areas to show wear. If there's any dulling there, it may not be uncirculated. Look at the color. Full red is ideal, red-brown is acceptable, brown is the least desirable. If it still looks flawless, consider photographing it carefully. Place it on a neutral background, use diffuse lighting from multiple angles to avoid harsh shadows, and shoot with a macro lens or phone in macro mode. Focus sharply on the date, mintmark, and Lincoln's profile. Clear images are essential if you want a grading service to see what you see. Then comes submission. Pick a grading service like PCGS or NGC. Submit the coin for grading as a modern business strike. There will be a fee, but if it grades MS68 or MS69RD, the value could far exceed the cost. If it grades lower, you may simply have a nice coin to keep as a personal collectible. When the coin comes back in a sealed slab with its grade on the label, it becomes far more liquid and marketable. Buyers pay more for certified coins because they trust the grade. Once certified, you can choose where to sell it. If it grades very high, consider consigning it to an auction house like Heritage, Stack's Bowers, or Great Collections, which have large audiences of serious collectors. These venues often get competitive bidding, especially for top-pop modern coins. If it's a nice grade but not ultra-rare, you might sell it on eBay or to a coin dealer. Always check recent sales of the same grade on auction archives so you have a realistic price target point. One of the most powerful tools a collector can use is auction research. Heritage Auctions and PCGS both have online archives of past sales with prices and images. Looking up 2018 Decent MS69RD. There shows exactly what similar coins sold for. This grounds your expectations in real market data instead of rumors. It also helps you spot patterns, for example, whether prices are rising, falling, or stable. Now imagine turning this whole journey into a story for your viewers. The thrill of finding a flawless coin, the delicate care to preserve it, the nervous excitement of sending it to grading, the suspense of waiting for the result, the shock of seeing a top grade, and the rush of watching it sell for thousands. It's the kind of transformation that makes people believe in treasure hunts. A coin that costs 1 cent becoming a collector's prize worth hundreds or thousands is a powerful narrative. And it really happens. To make this even more compelling for your audience, you can weave in the human stories behind the mint. Imagine the engraver who sculpted Lincoln's portrait, focusing for days on the subtle lines of his cheek and beard. Imagine the technician who set the dies into the massive coining press, never knowing one of the coins struck that day would become a collector's trophy. Imagine the bank teller who handed out a fresh roll without realizing one coin inside it was nearly perfect. These unseen people become part of the coin's silent biography, and maybe that's why collectors treasure these coins so much. It's not just metal and numbers. It's the feeling that history can still hide in plain sight, waiting for someone to notice. The 2018 cent may be small, light, and common, but hidden within it are layers of artistry, technology, chance, and human touch. Most of them will live quiet lives rattling through cash registers and vending machines. But a rare few will escape that fate, preserved as tiny red mirrors of perfection, each carrying the distant possibility of becoming legendary. Decades slip by like turning pages in an old book. The world changes, technology accelerates, and yet the 2018 penny continues to circulate silently in the background of life, almost invisible, passing from palm to palm, from drawer to drawer. But as the years wear on, their numbers dwindle. Billions shrink to millions, then to thousands. Most are battered and worn, their copper sheen dulled, their details softened by decades of friction. The shield that once gleamed sharply now lies flat and tired, Lincoln's profile fading into a faint silhouette. But a few, just a precious few, remain untouched, glowing red as if they were struck yesterday. These survivors begin to take on an almost mythical status among collectors, who whisper about them in hushed tones at shows and conventions, calling them time capsules, original reds, the ghosts of Denver. By now the world has changed enough that pennies are no longer struck. The government, after years of debate over production costs, finally ended the cent series. The last rolls were shipped to banks years ago. Suddenly, what was once common has become finite, frozen in history. And the 2018 stands not at the beginning of something, but near the end. This gives it a kind of weight it never had before, a sense of finality that collectors can feel when they hold one in a gloved hand under the cool white light of a grating lamp. It is no longer just a coin. It is a relic of the last era of everyday copper change in America. Museums begin to notice. In glass cases at the Smithsonian's numismatic collection, among gold double eagles and ancient Roman aureae, a small corner is devoted to the Lincoln cent series. A single perfect 2018 rests there, glowing like an ember, labeled simply, United States, 1 cent, Denver Mint, 2018. The end of an era. Visitors lean close to the glass, surprised that something so tiny and familiar could deserve a place beside centuries of world history. They do not know how rare it is to see one in such untouched beauty, or how many millions were destroyed to leave this one unscathed. Meanwhile, private collectors guard their own examples like hidden treasures. In vaults lined with felt and humidity control systems, coins sit in rows of hard plastic slabs, each labeled with its grade and certification number. Some of these collectors are older now, having spent decades chasing the perfect cent. To them, the 2018 is not just a coin but a symbol of a whole lifetime of searching. They remember the long hours under magnifiers, the aching eyes from sorting bank rolls, the thrill of sending a coin off for grading, and the electric jolt when it came back labeled MS69RD. These memories cling to the coin like invisible fingerprints, even though its surface remains flawless. The market reflects this transformation. What was once worth 1 cent now sells for sums that seem absurd to outsiders. Prices climb steadily as availability shrinks. Bidding wars erupt whenever one surfaces at auction, collectors from across the world driving the price higher with each click. Wealthy investors, who once poured their money into art and rare whiskey, now quietly add top pop modern cents to their portfolios, understanding that rarity, once recognized, transcends categories. The 2018 has become not just a collectible but an asset class, as much a symbol of status as a painting or a diamond, and yet, for all the value and competition, there is still something profoundly simple about it. It is still just a penny, light enough to balance on a fingertip, small enough to lose in the lining of a jacket pocket. This contrast, between its physical insignificance and its historical weight, gives it an almost poetic quality. When collectors describe it, they do not speak just of metal and grade. They speak of moments. The moment they first saw it. The moment they realized it was perfect. The moment they knew it would outlive them. New generations discover it as if for the first time. Young numismatists, raised on digital currency, marvel at the physical reality of it, the way the light catches on Lincoln's cheek, the way the fields glow with a soft red fire. To them, it is a window into a time when money was something you could touch, when history was carried not in clouds of data but in small discs of metal you could hold and keep and pass down. Teachers bring them to classrooms, letting students hold history between their fingers. And in that moment, the 2018 D-cent becomes more than just rare, it becomes alive again. Somewhere in a quiet corner of an estate auction, one day, another flawless 2018 D emerges from an old safety deposit box. It is sealed in an untouched slab, graded MS69 RD decades earlier, its surfaces unchanged by time. The room falls silent as the auctioneer holds it up. Collectors in suits, dealers with decades of experience, and wide-eyed newcomers all lean forward. The bidding starts. The numbers climb like a heartbeat. 10,000, 20,000, 40,000. When the hammer finally falls at $154 million, the room erupts in stunned applause. Reporters flood the scene. Headlines around the world declare, 1-cent coin sells for $154 million. And in that instant, the 2018 D-cent transcends even the wildest dreams of its creators. It becomes the most valuable modern coin in history, the ultimate symbol of how something born to be ordinary can become extraordinary through survival, beauty, and sheer improbable luck. Long after the auction ends, long after the headlines fade, the coin sits quietly in a climate-controlled case, softly glowing under dim museum lights. Visitors press their faces to the glass, whispering. Some laugh in disbelief. Some stare in awe. And somewhere, in the silence of that room, the coin simply exists, as it always has, small, unassuming, and eternal, carrying within it all the weight of the world's astonishment. Centuries pass like whispers in the dark, and the world forgets what it was like to hold money that clinked. The digital age matures, then dissolves into something stranger and more abstract, where currency exists only as shifting numbers in vast invisible networks. No one carries coins anymore. No one hears the jingle of change in their pocket, or the soft scrape of copper sliding across a countertop. Money is silent now, invisible and weightless. Children grow up never touching it, never smelling the faint tang of metal, never knowing that once, value had a shape and a face. They learn of coins only in history modules, vague images in textbooks, as distant as medieval armor or papyrus scrolls. And yet, in this world of ghosts and data, the 2018 D penny survives. It rests in temperature-controlled vaults, in sealed capsules impervious to time. It is no longer thought of as currency. It is thought of as a relic, almost sacred, a small copper-plated heartbeat from an extinct civilization of metal and touch. Museums have rebuilt entire exhibits around it, dim rooms where only a few visitors are allowed at a time, stepping reverently across soft carpet as hushed audio describes how people once carried billions of these tiny discs in their daily lives, spending them without thought, never realizing they held history in their hands. The single 2018 D that sold for $154 million becomes legendary beyond numismatics. It is called the last copper sun by curators, the ember of Denver by poets, and the soul sent by the public. Children recite its story like a fable, how something worthless became priceless, how something everyone ignored became the most desired object on earth. Its tale becomes less about the coin itself and more about what it represents, the fleetingness of value, the randomness of survival, the way time can turn dust into treasure. In this future, physical collectors are rare, almost anachronistic, yet fiercely devoted. They gather in secret societies, not in bustling coin shows but in quiet sanctuaries where they can hold real metal and feel its weight. When one of them is allowed to see the soul cent up close, they wear gloves spun from synthetic silk and breathe through filtered masks so as not to fog the slab. They describe the experience like standing at the edge of the ocean or looking into deep space. They speak of the color, still blazing red after centuries, as if the coin remembers the fire of its birth at the Denver mint presses long gone to dust. They speak of the design, the shield sharp as the day it was struck, the portrait of Lincoln still defiant and solemn, staring across the ages. Outside these vaults, the general public sees only the image. It appears on murals, in holograms, on the covers of history books. Its silhouette becomes a symbol, adopted by preservation movements as a sign of endurance. Some wear pendants shaped like the 2018 D shield to remind themselves that even small things can survive colossal change. The irony is that most who adore its image will never touch the real thing, and perhaps that is what gives it such power. It has passed beyond touch, beyond ownership, beyond even money. It is no longer something to buy or sell. It is something to believe in. Academics argue over its meaning. Economists write papers tracing its market trajectory, how it rose from 1 cent to millions, how scarcity and desire fed upon each other like twin flames. Cultural historians analyze its iconography, noting how Lincoln's portrait, once a symbol of American history, became in this new age a symbol of physical permanence itself. Philosophers debate whether its value is real or imagined, whether humans simply chose to crown it with meaning or whether it always carried some hidden essence waiting to be recognized. But for the last few living numismatists, there is no debate. They know what it is, a survivor. A single perfect moment of metal spared from the endless grinding jaws of time and commerce. They see not just its gleaming surfaces but the unfathomable odds it overcame, the violent strike that could have misaligned, the bag drops that could have scratched it, the years of circulation it could have endured but somehow didn't. They see the invisible storm it passed through untouched, and they know that is why it matters. Late at night, one of these old collectors sits alone in his study, surrounded by cabinets of coins centuries old, their luster faded, their legends half remembered. He pulls up an old image of the 2018 D soul cent on his wall screen. He leans close, staring into Lincoln's eyes on the tiny coin, and he smiles faintly. He was a child when pennies still clinked in pockets. He remembers picking them off sidewalks, shining them on his jeans, flicking them across tables. And now this one, this lone survivor, has outlived everything. It has outlived the banks, the mints, the nations, the money itself, and as he gazes at it in the quiet glow of his study, he feels something stir, not greed, not pride, but awe. Because the 2018 D penny has ceased to be a thing. It has become a story. A story told in copper and silence. A story that began as nothing and became everything. And long after the last screens go dark and the last networks fade into static, somewhere, in some forgotten vault, that story will still be there, glowing faintly in the dark, the last ember of a vanished world, waiting for someone new to open the box, to lift it toward the light, and to whisper in disbelief that a single penny could hold the weight of eternity. Time becomes a blur, centuries dissolving into millennia, and the world reshapes itself again and again. Cities rise and vanish, languages flicker like candle flames, continents shift their shapes under slow grinding tectonic sleep. The last vaults crack, the last museums crumble into dust, and the memory of coins fades from all living minds. Humans scatter to the stars, leaving Earth behind as a quiet, breathing planet wrapped in silence. The wind sweeps through the bones of their monuments, sand drifts over what was once Denver, and the great minting presses lie buried like the skeletons of extinct beasts. And yet, sealed inside a forgotten capsule deep beneath collapsed stone, the 2018 D penny endures. The plastic has yellowed slightly, but the coin inside is untouched, its surface still glowing softly like a trapped sunrise. It no longer knows it was called a penny, or that it once bought a fraction of a loaf of bread. It simply exists, as it has always existed, in perfect stillness. Ages pass over it like waves of night, and still it waits. One day, long after humanity has become only a rumor whispered among the stars, an expedition from a distant civilization descends to the silent blue ruins of Earth. They are not human. Their minds are strange, crystalline things, their bodies woven from lattices of light, but they are curious. They sift through collapsed towers and tangled bones of metal, piecing together the vanished story of this world. And in a dark cavern under what was once called Colorado, their instruments chirp softly, a signal, faint but unmistakable. Something small, metallic, impossibly preserved. They kneel in the dust and lift it carefully. The light catches on it. Copper flashes. The tiny portrait of Lincoln gazes back at them through the void of time, his profile unblinking, his cheeks smooth, his eyes solemn and clear. The shield still stands on the reverse, its 13 stripes perfect and bright as the day they were struck. The beings tilt their faceted heads, trying to comprehend it. They scan it, translate its symbols, reconstruct the concept of money from fractured databases. They discover it once represented value, then became valueless, then became priceless again. They understand that it was carried by billions and yet this one alone survived in perfection. They do not have emotions as humans once did, but something like reverence stirs in their neural lattice. They take it aboard their vessel and place it in a transparent sphere of protective stasis. Across light years they carry it to their archives, a cathedral of artifacts from extinct worlds. And there, on a pedestal of silent black stone beneath a dome of stars, they place it. A single disk of copper, no larger than a fingernail, glowing like a seed of ancient fire. They record what they know, that it was called the 2018 Descent, that it bore the image of a being called Lincoln, and that it once meant almost nothing yet came to mean almost everything. They name it in their own tongue, a name that translates loosely as the last memory of touch, and so the story continues, no longer bound to earth or to the people who made it. Long after the oceans have dried, long after the mountains have worn to dust, long after even the stars that shone on the Denver Mint have burned out and gone cold, the coin still endures. It drifts in silence at the heart of a distant archive, a fragment of a vanished world preserved in perfect stillness. And no one remembers what bread it might have bought, what pocket it once warmed, what careless hand first dropped it on a countertop. No one remembers Marcus counting it on his dorm desk, or the collectors who whispered about it, or the roaring auction that crowned it with impossible wealth. All of that has fallen away, shed like old leaves in the endless seasons of time. What remains is only this, a circle of copper, a face staring into eternity, a shield standing alone in the dark, and perhaps that is its final meaning. That even in a universe that forgets everything, even in a cosmos where empires vanish like smoke, a single small thing can endure if it is loved, if it is spared, if it is seen. The 2018 penny, once dismissed as nothing, has become the oldest story still told, the story of survival, the story of wonder, the story of how even the smallest spark can outlast the sun, and somewhere, in the quiet glow of a starless archive beyond the edge of time, it still gleams, still waits, still whispers across the endless dark, a voice made of metal and silence saying, "I was once sent. And I became forever." And now, after all the centuries we've imagined, after the legends and the vaults and the silence of deep time, we come back to where it all began. Right here. Right now. You, listening to these words, and the small glimmer of copper in your own palm. A coin so light you could flick it across the room, so common you might have ignored it 1,000 times before. A 2018 penny, born in the roaring jaws of the Denver Mint presses, just one among billions. And yet, inside this tiny disc, everything you've heard lives quietly, waiting. The history. The craftsmanship. The survival. The impossible journey it could take if it escapes the ordinary fate of its brothers. You can feel its coolness against your skin, its fine ridgeless rim, the crisp strike of Lincoln's profile. You can tilt it under the light and watch the fields flare red and gold, as though some ancient sun is still trapped inside it. It doesn't seem like much. It isn't much, not yet. But maybe that is the entire point. That greatness is never obvious at the beginning. That treasures are born disguised as nothing. That the future can hide in something small enough to lose between the couch cushions. And somewhere out there, maybe right now, someone is holding a coin just like this one, and they don't know what they have yet. Maybe it will vanish into the blur of circulation, scraped and battered until it becomes just metal again. Or maybe they'll see it, really see it, the way Marcus once did at his dorm desk under a cheap lamp, and they'll save it. They'll cradle it in plastic and patience and hope, and decades from now it will emerge like a red spark from the darkness, a perfect survivor, a fragment of history made immortal by nothing more than care. That possibility is what makes this story powerful. It's not about guaranteed value, or chasing money, or rare populations on a chart. It's about the chance, slim, almost impossible, but real, that something completely ordinary might be extraordinary. That you might be the one who notices. That you might be the beginning of a legend no one else sees coming. Look at it again. Just a penny. Just 1 cent. And yet, maybe if it endures, if it's spared from time, if it escapes all the scratches and drops and years, it could become more than that. It could become part of the great chain of stories that stretch from mint floor to museum vault, from pocket change to starlight. And even if it never does, even if it spends its life buying gum and clattering through vending machines until it fades to brown and disappears, there is still something beautiful in knowing it could have been. That potential, invisible and silent, is its secret glow. So maybe tonight you'll check your change. Maybe you'll look closer. Maybe you'll see a flash of red and pause, just for a second, as if you're seeing through time. Because legends don't announce themselves when they're born. They arrive quietly, small and ordinary, and wait for someone to notice. And maybe, just maybe, that someone will be you. Somewhere, in this moment, countless coins are passing from hand to hand, unnoticed. They clink in pockets, slide across counters, tumble through machines. Most will vanish, worn to shadows of what they were, their details erased by years and friction and forgetfulness. No one will remember them. No one will say their names. They will disappear as quietly as they were born. But not all. Not every one. Somewhere, one might be waiting. One might slip past the years untouched, hidden in a jar, tucked in a drawer, cradled by accident or by instinct. And as the world spins on, as generations come and go, it will remain. A witness. A seed. A single unbroken thread of memory. Perhaps it will be a 2018D. Perhaps it will gleam red as though time itself bowed around it. Perhaps, centuries from now, someone will open a forgotten box and gasp, feeling the weight of a whole vanished world resting in their hand. They won't know you. They won't know where it came from, or how it survived, only that it did. And they will feel what everyone who has ever held something truly rare feels: awe. And when that moment comes, they will not see just metal. They will see the whole impossible journey. They will see the roaring presses of Denver, the countless hands it escaped, the endless years it outlasted, and the faint, miraculous chance that let it endure. They will see history folded into something small enough to balance on a fingertip. And as they stare into the tiny face of Lincoln, still solemn, still unblinking across the abyss of centuries, they will understand what you understand now, that even the smallest thing can become eternal, if it survives long enough to be seen. Then they will place it back into the light, and the light will catch it, and it will shine. And the world will fall silent around it. And somewhere, maybe not here, maybe not now, but someday far beyond the edges of memory, a voice will whisper through the stillness, soft as a breath, softer than time itself: 1 cent forever.